Good morning and welcome to Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. A very special welcome to those of you who are guests or visiting with us today, especially from YouTube. As we prepare ourselves in heart and mind for worship, I invite you to take a few moments while we have our prelude to prepare yourselves for worship. Service begins on page 79 of the prayer book. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. But if we confess our sins, God, who is faithful and just, will forgive our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Jesus said, if any would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Dearly beloved, we come together in the presence of Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, to set forth His praise, to hear His holy word, and to ask for ourselves and on behalf of others those things that are necessary for our life and our salvation. And so that we may prepare ourselves in heart and mind to worship Him, let us kneel in silence and with penitent and obedient hearts confess our sins, that we may obtain forgiveness by His infinite goodness and mercy. Most merciful God, we confess that we have sinned against you in thought, word, Lord, open our lips.
And our mouth shall proclaim your praise.
Glory to the Father,
and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit,
as it was in the
beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen.
Following the antiphon, we will say together the Benedict on page 82. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy.
Come, let us adore him.
And together the Benedict in unison. Come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us shout for joy to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before his presence in thanksgiving, and raise a loud shout to him with songs. For the Lord is a great God, and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the caverns of the earth, and the heights of the hills are his also. The sea is his for he made, and his hands have molded the dry land. Come, let us bow down and bend the knee, and kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, and the sheep of his hand. Oh, that today you would hearken to his voice. You may be seated.
The psalm reading for today is Psalm 23, which can be found on page 612 of your prayer book. We will read the psalm in unison. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me on right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk this valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Glory to the Father,
To the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen.
A reading from the book of 1 Samuel. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you grieve over Saul? I have rejected him from being king over Israel. Fill your horn with oil and set out. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided for myself a king among his sons." Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears of it, he will kill me." And the Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me the one whom I name to you." Samuel did what the Lord commanded, and came to Bethlehem. The elders of the city came to meet him trembling and said, "Do you come peaceably?" He said, "Peaceably. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." And he sanctified Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they came, he looked on Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed is now before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him, for the Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. He said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, And he said, "Neither has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse made seven of his sons pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen any of these." Samuel said to Jesse, "Are all your sons here?" And he said, "There remains yet the youngest, but he is keeping the sheep." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here." He sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. The Lord said, "Rise and anoint him, for this is the one." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward. Samuel then set out and went to Ramah. The word of the Lord.
Hymn number 490, I Want to Walk as a Child of the Light. I want to walk as a child of the light. I want to follow Jesus. God set the stars to give light to the world. The star of my life is Jesus. In him there is no darkness at all. The night and the day are both alike. The Lamb is the light of the city of God. Shine in my heart, Lord Jesus. I want to see the brightness of God. I want to look at Jesus. Clear sun of righteousness, shine on my path and show me the way to the Father. In him there is no darkness at all. The night and the day are both alike. The Lamb is the light of the city of God. Shine in my heart, Lord Jesus. I'm looking for the coming of Christ. I want to be with Jesus. When we have run with patience the race, we shall know the joy of Jesus. In him there is no darkness at all. The night and the day are both alike. The Lamb is the light of the city of God. Shine in my heart, Lord Jesus.
A reading from the book of John. As he walked along, he saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with saliva, and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back, able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put mud on my eyes. Then I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." He said, "He is a prophet." The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that he now sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask of him, he is of age, he will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So for the second time they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, "I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they reviled him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins, and are you trying to teach us?" And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see become blind. Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sinned. But now that you say, 'We see,' your sin remains." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Sometimes our sight can deceive us, our perspective can deceive us. That which we see and hear through the faculties of our eyes and ears does not always accord with the underlying reality of things. This truism can often be readily apparent in the communication between spouses, where one partner, focused and intent on one thing or another, hears the words of the other, and yet fails to hear the real content, the meaning of those words. It is an incredible human faculty, really, to hear without hearing and to see without seeing. It is also a faculty that gets many of us into trouble, whether trouble with our parents, our mothers-in-law, our friends, or our spouses. Sometimes the matter of seeing and hearing, or lack thereof, is a function of a much more complex set of variables. Sometimes that which we need to hear is never spoken, and that which we ought to see is kept hidden from us. Both of our readings today and our song have to do with this theme of sight, vision, perception, and understanding. Our reading from the first book of Samuel details the very beginnings of David's story. Samuel, the great prophet of ancient Israel, who anointed Saul as the first king over Israel, has heard God's judgment on Saul and was sent by God to find another, a king fit for the office that Saul currently holds. So Samuel went off to Bethlehem to find Jesse and to interview his sons. Though Jesse kept David out of sight, tending the sheep while his older brothers were seen first, Samuel suspects the ruse, and he insists that all Jesse's sons be presented to him. David, the youngest, then came in from the pasture, and in an astonishing and unforeseen move, Samuel anointed him. In the presence of his brothers, all of whom struck a more imposing figure than young David, Samuel anointed him. God knew Samuel would be hesitant, and God warned Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." In other words, the very cornerstone that was rejected by the builders has become the chief cornerstone. God prepared Samuel to anoint David by warning him of the deception of his own perspective, by warning him against his own bias and the bias of his eyes. Though David was not a tall, strapping warrior, he would yet become a king, and God, not David, would bring that about. Our reading from the book of John tells a related story. Again, God rebukes the natural perspective of others, the natural perspective of Jesus' disciples. They assume, as was common to assume, that the man's blindness, his disability, was the result of either his or his parents' sin. Jesus rejects their understanding of sin and disability and rebukes them. Then, following this rebuke, he proceeds to encourage them. We must do the works of God during the daytime, that is, when all can see and observe. For there will come a time when none can see, and when none can therefore work. Jesus proclaims himself to be the light of the world, and then shows the truth of this claim by bringing light to a man born in darkness, sight to a man born blind. But the story does not stop there, for John is keen to make a broader point. The man born blind, after receiving his sight from Jesus, was brought before the Pharisees, the religious elders, supposedly those endowed with spiritual insight and understanding. And these religious elders are themselves shown to be blind, blind to the light of Christ in the world, because of their limited perspectives and their refusal to admit reality, even as it stares them, even as he stares them literally in the face. It is difficult to fight something that cannot be seen, to fight a disease that cannot be seen, a problem that defies simple explanation. And yet here in March 2020, we find the world at a breaking point. A global pandemic spreading rapidly despite many efforts to stop it. Many of us have taken precautions to remain at home, away from contact with others, even though such orders have not yet come down from the governor's office, that they may be forthcoming. Prudence in a pandemic can be a lifesaver, but this kind of prudence is not an option for many, and the inability for so many in our country to adopt social distancing is a disaster in the making. What do we see? And what has been hidden from our view? To what have we been rendered blind? Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of the most famous Christian thinkers of the 19th century, once wrote, "The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons." Prisons in our country are not often in the center of town. Today they are typically tucked away in smaller rural areas, close to but hidden from the main roads. Many of us have never set foot inside an American prison. Prisons are invisible to many of us. The problems of those locked away there far from our daily consideration. The crisis of mass incarceration in the United States is the result of 4 decades of bipartisan cooperation. So be careful what you wish for when you wish that people would cooperate a little bit more across the aisle. It began in earnest during Reagan's drug war, boomed after Clinton's '94 crime bill, received greater for-profit investment under Bush, and allied itself with the mass detention of immigrants under Obama. Though the current administration's track record has received far more media coverage in recent years, it represents an intensification of, and not a radical break from, the policies and developments of several administrations. The United States has the highest incarceration rates when adjusted for total population of any country in the world, and that includes in comparison to China, which has actual concentration camps for several Turkic Muslim ethnic groups and some Christian groups. In our prisons, and even more so in our migrant detention centers, social distancing is an impossibility. When there are 80 beds in a large open-air room, or simply 30 people locked in a small fenced-in area, exhortations to maintain 6 feet of separation would be a laughable absurdity if it was not a matter of life and death. In Italy, the prison riots have already begun, as the new coronavirus pandemic has begun spreading in its prisons. On Rikers Island earlier this week, the first confirmed case was found, and the first ICE agent was found to have coronavirus today. For most of us, our concerns during this pandemic are about the safety and health of our loved ones, our grandparents living a few states away, our friends and siblings who are particularly vulnerable, and our concerns about our own needs. How we are going to get any food when the shelves are consistently empty from all the overbuying of those who are panicked. How we're going to pay rent or our mortgage now that we are suddenly out of work. We have real needs, and may have even more pressing needs in the weeks ahead. There's nothing wrong with our focus being stuck on our particular needs. We must do all that we can to meet them. This is a natural focus for us. But with that in mind, as a Christian community, we're also called to care for those neediest among us: the sick, the orphan, the widow, the poor, and the imprisoned. Each of these in times like this requires special care far beyond whatever support we may be able to provide on our own. Our care and concern is rooted in our sight, in what we see and what we know. That is why, right now, our cares and concerns are so closely tied to our own safety and to that of our loved ones. But the light of Christ is a light that reaches to all corners of the earth, a light that brings sight to the blind, a light that reveals things hidden in darkness and makes them known. However long this pandemic lasts, we must take care to notice those we often ignore, those most vulnerable in times like these, those most often left out of the conversation. We can only act upon that which has entered our awareness, the things we see and the realities we know. So while we are hunkered down, perhaps out of work, perhaps working from home, let us be mindful of those who are in even greater danger than many of us. Those who are stuck with guards who may be sick, or with fellow inmates from whom they cannot get away, and for whom good medical care is a practical impossibility. And let us take the time, now that many of us have so much time restricted to our quarters, to seek knowledge, to seek insight about those places in our society that are most often overlooked, the places that are kept in the darkness, out of sight and out of mind. Consider, for example, reading Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, or looking up the Marshall Project, or the Sentencing Project online, all three great resources to help bring more awareness to the origins, realities, and endemic problems of our broken criminal justice system. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus described the final judgment. He said, "To those at his right hand he commends them. Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Though now may not be the best time to visit our prisons in person, as we may be carriers of this virus without knowing it, we may yet visit the imprisoned by learning about their plight, by paying attention to what, if anything, is being done to ensure their safety and security in the midst of a global pandemic, by studying our system of mass incarceration, and by joining in efforts to bring meaningful reform. Fortunately, a large part of this can be done from the comfort of our homes, through research, reading, and various online resources. Only as we seek to bring light to our own understanding, sight to our own blindness, about the real and long-standing problems in our communities and in our country, may we prevent a great catastrophe from occurring in some of the darkest corners of our society. Only then may we avoid the condemnation of Dostoevsky's maxim, a deserved condemnation indeed for our society, given the current state of our prisons. The light of Christ will shine in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. May we be among those who shine with this light, rather than the darkness that will forever be cast out. I invite you to rise. Together let us affirm our faith in the words of the Apostles' Creed, found on page 96 of your prayer book. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, who was the Son of our Lord. He was conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit and born of the Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He ascended to the dead. On the third day he rose again. He ascended into heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Let us continue with suffrage set A. Show us your mercy, O Lord.
And grant us your salvation.
Clothe your ministers with righteousness.
Let your people sing with joy.
Give peace, O Lord, in all the world.
For only in you can we live in safety.
Lord, keep this nation under your care.
And guide us in the way of justice and truth.
Let your way be known upon earth.
Your saving help among all nations.
Let not the needy, O Lord, be forgotten.
Nor the hope of the poor be taken away.
Create in us clean hearts, O God.
And sustain us with your Holy Spirit.
Gracious Father, whose blessed Son, Jesus Christ, came down from heaven to be the true bread, which gives life to the world. Evermore give us this bread, that he may live in us and we in him, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. O God, you make us glad with the weekly remembrance of the glorious resurrection of your Son, our Lord. Give us this day such blessing through our worship of you, that the week to come may be spent in your favor. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Amen.
O God, you have made of one blood all the peoples of the earth, and sent your blessed Son to preach peace to those who are far off and to those who are near. Grant that people everywhere may seek after you and find you. Bring the nations into your fold. Pour out your Spirit upon all flesh, and hasten the coming of your kingdom. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
I invite your intercessions and thanksgivings at this time offered either silently or aloud. Lord, we lift up all those who are being impacted by current coronavirus, especially those who are sick, all medical staff and personnel working to support them. Pray for all of our national leaders, our state leaders, grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. This concludes our